Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is a pair of tweezers from Triiaxis. These are the Titanium Keychain Tweezers from the Triiaxis folks. First, though, in the name of full disclosure, I got to let you know that these little tweezers were provided to me by the manufacturer. Triiaxis reached out to me a long time ago now. This review has been a long time in coming, partly because I felt like it needed to be. I wanted to take that time, but nonetheless, reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, I got a pair of tweezers. I think you might be interested, in them as an everyday carry geek and titanium fan. You want to check them out?" I told him, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. Sent him the disclaimer on my website. He still sent him along. Nonetheless, we have to assume this is the very best quality control little pair of tweezers ever, and I'm doing my absolute best not to let this affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick, and what I'm going to go on ahead and do is, start off just to show you the size. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. So these are very, very small. This is not a particularly large set of tweezers. I'll throw it up here next to a ruler, and so what we're going to see here is that the tweezers themselves run right around a little bit over 2 inches. There is that. And then actually I'll compare it to two other sets of kind of common everyday carry tweezers. This would be the kind of bent plate metal kind of thing. And this is a set of tweezers coming out of a Victorinox, in this case a Swiss Champ, but I believe these to be a standard Victorinox tweezer. And so what we're going to see here is that these are kind of in an intermediate range, although certainly you can get these larger and smaller. So there is that. Next thing, what the heck is a Triiaxis? Well, Triiaxis is a small company based here out of the U.S., and they are actually making some knives now, too, which I'll probably check out at some point in time. But they are they're a company who is really focused on kind of weird machining and that kind of thing. And these guys are... I was very skeptical at first just because of the design here. I figured, oh, this is going to come out, it's going to be insecure, it's going to be not really work that well. So I carried them, and I carried them, and I carried them. These guys have probably been in my pocket for the better part of a year at this point in time. This is one of the longer-term reviews I have ever carried, and it's a piece of evidence as to, how effective these have been, that I kind of forgot they were there. They were useful when they were used, but the rest of the time, they just kind of existed. So my goal here today is just to tell you, well, how has it been overall? And then finally, I just got to warn you ahead of time, price tag on these guys, $45. Not terrible, but at the same time, a little bit more than some of your other tweezers. So let's talk about the good and the not so good about these little guys right here. So on the good side to start with, these are made here in the States. You can see right there, USA made. Look, that quality is about effort, not geography, but it's always nice to support the home team. And, for me, it's great to support a local maker rather than some company cranking out a bazillion, plate metal tweezers out there in the world. So there's that. Next thing, you do get a choice of coloration. If you go to the website, you were able to choose both a finish as well as a coloration. And again, this is not a best representative of finish because this has spent a long time in my pocket. So as a result, the finish is a little bit on the worn side, but you can get that. And this is, I believe, the toxic finish, where you get a bit of a rainbow anodization on it. But these are solid titanium, and so they can be anodized quite happily. Next thing, these have a very, very nice closure as a tweezer. What I mean by that is that, if you look right down at the tip here, and I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit further, these guys come down to a very, very fine point, and they grab very much right at the tip there. It is not uncommon to see tweezers that are very, very not so good in terms of their actual closure, but these come to a very fine point. And it is more than fine enough to grab, for instance, for me, one of the best uses for these were actually eyelashes. I am a person with voluminous eyelashes for whatever the heck reason. Now you're going to be having that image, which enjoy that in a Batman mask. But anyways, as a result, I regularly get eyelashes going into my eyeballs, and it's not amazing. So I can always just sneak off to a bathroom, grab these out, use the mirror, pull the offending eyelash out of the situation. It's a very, very nice thing. And so it is very, very good in that these work a lot better than a lot of the, baseline tweezers that you see out in the world. The other thing that's worth noting is that they will wear a little bit better because the tips of these guys are never exposed, right? It's not the case. There are definitely tweezers that you can just toss in your pocket out there in the world, but the problem is then the tips will tend to get dinged up and dented. But in this case, the tip is never exposed when it's being carried. The tip is always kept in there, and so it can remain relatively sharp, I guess is the right term. And so I do appreciate that very, very much. There is also a bit of a gap here. So what I mean by that is in the back here, you are squeezing something that is wider than the closure. So it's very easy to get in here and get really good leverage. As opposed to if we were to look in here, I'll show you. I've got a standard US quarter here. And if I kind of grab onto this, I can do that very effectively. Because I am pinching back here, and of course there's a single point of rotation here, but I'm pinching right here, and I can put a fair amount of force onto that because, well, it's continuing to apply the force down here. As opposed to if you have something like, for instance, on your little Victorinox tools here, there is a very limited amount of force because this steel, much like all steel Victorinox uses, is relatively soft, and so it's very hard to put any meaningful force before your fingers come together in the middle there. And you have the same issue, actually, with this kind of tweezer as well, where all the pinching past the point, you just pinch these guys shut. So I really found that these work a lot better as tweezers than a lot of the other kind of EDC tweezer options as a result. Next thing, this guy has a driver tip on the back here. This is actually, it kind of looks like a very small flathead screwdriver. In fact, I've used it as such on occasion. It's also a very, very light pry tip, which I have also used on occasion to just get in between something or another. It's a nice little tool in that way. Is it crucial? No. Is it something I used all the time? No, but when I was there, and it also has a little bit of jimping, by the way, right here, kind of machined in to make that very easy to grab onto and use. So it is very nice to have that as a little tool option there in the world. You can also see, by the way, the logo for Triiaxis has been machined right in there. That's nice. So there's that. Next thing, this is ridiculously lightweight. This guy with the little split ring here on the keychain is coming in, let's see here, make sure everything's on there, 0.18 ounces. This is extraordinarily light, right? And just for comparison, you're looking at 0.2 for a quarter. Right, so this is going to add right around the same amount of weight to your pocket as a single US quarter. That's not a large amount of weight here. And as a result, it has the feeling, especially when it's hanging on your keychain, of like, I'm not carrying anything extra until I reach in and then I grab them, and then, oh, suddenly I've got tweezers. So that's a very, very nice thing. Next thing, the retention was something that was very scary to me at first. When he just sent me a picture of this, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, I'm going to have tweezers flipping around in my pocket all the damn time. But in practice, again, carrying this for a long time, I haven't noticed that. That hasn't been an issue for me really at all. This guy has stayed exactly where it should be in nearly every occasion. And you can pull it off just a little bit if you really kind of grab one end and yank. But generally speaking, the way that you get it off is you just pinch here, and then it instantly comes out of there, and then you reseat it. And as a result, you can actually do this within the pocket. For me, because my keys are hanging, I can just kind of reach in there and then pull the tweezers off and come out with a pair of tweezers. And this, by the way, allows you to seem like a wizard around friends and coworkers and colleagues, right? Because you are 5 seconds away from being able to have these in your hand, handing to somebody to say, hey, you need some tweezers for that. It is ridiculously fun because you just reach into your pocket and you pull out a set of rainbow anodized tweezers that are perfect for the task and very effective. And they're like, wait, hold on. You just carry around tweezers? And you're just like, yeah, of course. Why don't you? It's absolutely amazing. This is one of the many reasons that folks at work think I'm weird, but these work exceptionally well for that. So they are always on the keychain, but then again, when you decide you need them, they are very easy to get off of the keychain, and that is a beautiful thing. So to me, all of that is the good, is that you can seem like a wizard. They're very hard to have come loose. And in fact, I didn't really ever have that be an issue for me as I was carrying these guys. They're ridiculously lightweight with a driver and a pry tip. Very nice closure, a choice of colorations of the titanium, and they are made here in the States. On the bad side to start with, of course, these are not the cheapest keychain tweezers. At 100%, you can get, little situations where you get one of these guys here, as well as a little kind of carrier for it. You can get those for like $8 or $10, right? That's way cheaper. And similarly, for $40, you can get a Victorinox that includes tweezers. But again, these tweezers are, they're garbage. Let's just be real here. So you can definitely get a set of pocket tweezers for cheaper if you are looking to do that. Next thing, these are not a pointy tweezer, right? There is definitely a role in your life for a tweezer that has a point. This is a watchmaking set of tweezers here. This is not what that does. If you are trying to get into your skin and get a splinter out of there or something like that, you might actually find yourself wanting a very pointy tweezer. Instead, with this, you do have a tip, and that tip is often sufficient to get in and grab the side of a tweezer. I was able to do most of what I needed here, but there may be moments where you need a very pointy tweezer, and that is sort of a different and separate thing. So you do have to keep that in mind. Next thing, it also, by the way, does not have any kind of an internal if we look at the bottom of this, what you're going to see is there is little kind of, I don't even know what to call this, texturing, lining, knurling, jimping, something along those lines on the inside there for grabbing items. This does not have that. This is entirely smooth on the inside there. So it is going to be better favored for grabbing things right on the outside rather than trying to grab something over a larger contact surface, although you certainly can grab something over a larger contact surface. So there is that. Next thing, the finish on these guys, as I take them off screen, has faded a little bit with carry. You can actually see sort of where this gets to the point where it starts hitting other elements of my keychain. So this area has kind of been naturally stonewashed, maybe brass washed, by the keychain, whereas the bottom parts not so much. Is this the end of the world? No, absolutely not. I think it lends it a nice patina, but that is a thing you're going to want to keep in mind. Next thing, this could be a little bit more problematic if you have a very large and unruly keychain. Right, my keychain is very small. I use a KeySmart keybar style key organizer. I have a little Uber key for security logins, and I have my car key hanging on there, and then I have this guy. So as a result, there's not really much moving this around, pushing it around, competing with it. If you've got 50,000 keys on there, then I could see a higher probability of one of those keys getting in there and pulling this guy loose. So your mileage may vary a little bit, although again, my mileage has been very good, so no real complaint there. Then finally on the bad side, one downside to this is although it has a very wide gap here, it has a very small opening. The spring on this guy, and I probably could rebend it a little bit more if I wanted to, but it's a precision thing. I don't want to try that. You sometimes, in order to grab something a little bit thicker, you kind of need to open it up manually first to be able to put that thing in there, and then you can pinch it down, right? It doesn't come all the way open, so to speak. Not a terrible thing, but that would actually increase the retention a little bit. And by the way, the maker did say that the retention has been increased since the one that they made for me, which I don't think is super crucial, but, still nice to see. But either way, that might be one of the methods is by springing this open a little bit more so the retention's a little stronger. But to me, all that is the bad is that it has a relatively small opening in the front there. It might be a little bit more problematic with a big and unruly keychain. It is going to fade a little bit with the carry, the anodization, that is. It's not particularly a pointy set of tweezers, and there were certainly cheaper options. On the final conclusion front, this is a neat little tool. It's made in the States. It's got lots of colors, a nice grabbing action, a tip that is kept safe from impact and all kinds of aggression there. It's got a nice little driver, a nice little pry edge. By the way, it can only go in one direction. It needs to go in with these holes up. If I try to push it in the other way, it just kind of stops at a certain point. So do need to be careful there. But it's got a nice little driver and pry edge on the back here. It's lightweight, and it's got really solid retention in there, which is a beautiful thing. And you get to be a wizard by pulling this guy out of your pocket randomly when somebody needs a set of tweezers. Unfortunately, it is a very expensive option relative to $5 or $6 set of plate tweezers, right? There is a choice of, the finish has faded a little bit. It might be a problem if you've got a keychain with a bunch of chaos hanging off of it, and I'm picturing just like pestilence and war hanging off a keychain. Anyway, sorry. That's a whole thing. And the opening is sized mostly for grabbing small objects rather than for grabbing anything larger, with no jimping on the inside there. Look, that said, these have been great for me. These have been the very best thing that an everyday carry tool can be, and that is boring. And I don't mean boring in the sense of it's a bad design or it's a dumb design or anything like that. I mean boring in the sense of I forget that I'm carrying them until I need them, in which case I have them, and it works perfectly, right? That is the kind of boring that I want to see in the everyday carry world, right? Where it's just like, this is exactly where I need it when I need it to be there. And aside from that, it's a non-issue, right? And absolutely, I could have been carrying something like this, right? I could have been carrying, and these are almost as light. These are a lot cheaper. But the fact is, these are just better tweezers. And it's really nice to come out of the pocket with a very good set of exceptional and functional tweezers. So yes, you could absolutely buy 5 pairs of the cheapy pressed metal ones for the price of this guy. But these are better at tweezing, and frankly, if you can afford it, I'd rather support a machinist locally who's putting in some strong thought and effort rather than one of a million factories cranking these guys out. So, final conclusion, if your goal is cheap tweezers, then by God, you can get cheaper easy, right? You can get a whole Swiss Army knife with, bad tweezers if you want it. But if your goal is to have a nice object that also happens to be great tweezers, then 100% this is going to be a gem for you, and you absolutely are going to want to give these guys a try. Axis. Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, that you enjoyed this Pinche review. Get it? Because it pinches things, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful, that one was for the Hispanohablante audience there. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.